Morning! Wow, sun is shining, but it's chilly. I was in a t-shirt last week and now I'm in a sweater. Winter's coming. Well, big news. Well, a couple big news things today. First of all, big news that just came out a couple hours ago out of Hollywood is that Warner Brothers has decided that next year all their films will be released simultaneously in theaters and on their HBO Max streaming service at the same time. And that includes movies like Dune, the new Matrix film. What else is coming out next year that's big? Um, I forget. But anyhow, yeah, that's big news. It makes sense. This virus isn't going away tomorrow. Even here in Hong Kong, they're now telling us we're not going to get the vaccine until July at the earliest, which means I probably won't get it till September. So Warner Brothers is saying, it's too iffy. Some cinemas are open, some cinemas are closed. We have this HBO Max streaming service. We want to build it up. We want to compete with Netflix. So let's just do it this way. So I think what they're going to do is it 30 days or 45 days? I can't remember. So a film will be released simultaneously both in cinemas where that are open and on HBO Max. Um, and and I think it'll run on HBO Max for like 30 days or something. Then they'll take it off, and yeah, and then at that point, I don't know what'll happen. It'll probably go to HBO, I assume. I don't know, or they'll hold it for a while and then it'll go to HBO. Well, we'll see. Here in Hong Kong, we don't have HBO Max, so it means that we'll just get it in cinemas. That's our only option, unless something happens next year. I have no idea. But now comes the second bit of news: is our cinemas are now closed again, thanks to a bunch of dancing grannies. And that's, by the way, is a Chinese euphemism for something a little less innocent than just doing the cha-cha. Yeah, we now have a whole bunch of new infections, still far fewer than what's going on in America and in other places around the world. But for us, it's a lot. I think yesterday we had 90. I know we hit 103 the other day, so we're hovering close to 100 each day. And so the cinemas are closed and a whole bunch of other things are closed. My gym is still open. I went yesterday and it was packed because I think everybody's thinking that the gyms are going to close any minute now. So I think people were trying to get in as much exercise as they could before, but we had to wear masks in the gym, which is really uncomfortable because you're going like, like this. But anyhow, it is what it is. So anyhow, with that, and I can't, I haven't been to the movies the whole week, so I got to talk about what's on the streaming services and elsewhere. And so the first film I want to talk about is Hillbilly Elegy, which is getting a lot of press. And I'll talk about why and whether I agree with that in just a second. So, with the end of the year, it's on our doorstep, and, this is the time when we're going to start seeing prestige films on our screens or on the streaming services, prestige films like Hillbilly Elegy. And this is typical, but because it's not a typical year, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, which is the organization behind the Oscars, they've had to institute a temporary change to its eligibility rules for this year's Oscar Awards. Now, a film can debut on a streaming or VOD service in order to be eligible for an Oscar nomination. However, and I think that runs until February the 28th, I believe. However, the film must have had a planned theatrical release. That's very interesting. You can sort of plan a release, sort of like that. I don't know what's involved financially to plan a release, but anyhow, and then once it goes on the streaming or the VOD service, it has to be available on the Academy screening room streaming site, which is for members only, not for you and I, within 60 days of the film's release. So as I said, any film that qualifies under those rules up until February 28th is eligible for an Oscar, and the Oscars, which normally happens at the end of February, has now been pushed off to April. I forget what day in April. It's towards the end of April at any rate for next year. And they've said it's going to be an in-person event. So I don't know how they're going to do that. We'll see what happens. I guess maybe they're expecting anybody who goes to the Oscars is going to have to be vaccinated, I would imagine. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So anyhow, back to Hillbilly Elegy. It landed on the streaming service a few days ago. It's acclaimed director Ron Howard's latest film. Ron Howard, of course, people like Carol and I would remember Ron Howard as Opie from the Andy Griffith Show when we were kids. That was a show we used to watch when we were kids. But for people younger than us, he did Solo, a Star Wars story. He did A Beautiful Mind, which I think he won an Oscar for. He did, of course, Apollo 13. This is based on the 2016 memoir of the same name. Well, actually, it has a longer name, but we'll just call it Hillbilly Elegy, by a fellow by the name of J.D. Vance. And it recounts Vance's time when he was a law student at Yale University. And what happened was after, according to the movie, after Vance, and in the movie he's played as an adult by Gabriel Basso. People who watched The Big C would know who he is. Or if you remember a film from, about 10 years ago, Super 8, he was in that film. So he plays Vance as an adult, and a newcomer by the name of Owen Astelos plays him as a teenager. Vance receives a phone call from his older sister, Lindsay, played by Haley Bennett, who we just saw in The Devil All the Time, and she also starred in Swallow. And he got news that their mother is in the hospital in their hometown of Middleton, Ohio, having overdosed on heroin. And at the worst possible time, not that there ever is a good time for anything like this, he has to head home and try to get her into a rehab center. And the mother, by the way, is played by Amy Adams. As I said, it comes at the worst possible time. And because he's trying to get a summer internship at a prestigious law firm, because the income that he would receive from that internship would cover his third year of tuition at Yale. So he needs the money to stay in the program. So while en route to Middletown, Ohio, he remembers the key events in his life that brought him to this point. Now, as I said at the outset, this film is getting a lot of press. It's being raked over the coals by critics, and it's hard not to see why. For what should be an underdog tale of a boy who was born on the wrong side of the tracks, who overcame all odds and made a success of himself, that's what the film should be about. Instead, this film smacks of white privilege, who's of a young white man whose biggest problem is not getting a well-paying job. I watch this film going, I just don't get it. For some reason, Howard and Vanessa, and the screenwriter Vanessa Taylor, she co-wrote The Shape of Water, one of my favorite films from a few years ago. They want audiences to feel empathy for Vance for having a crappy working class childhood, yet still being able to pull himself up by the bootstraps. And yeah, he did it, and good for him for doing it, But is this story worth retelling? I don't think it is, and certainly a lot of other people don't think so either. Being a white male, he already has the advantage over just as hardworking women and people of color who have to deal with institutional prejudice every single day. And what makes this story even more irksome, for me and I think for many other people, is that his own girlfriend is one such person. She's Indian, her name is Usha. She's played by Frida Pinto, who was in Slumdog Millionaire. She gets on with life, and she even supports him on his journey because he's a white man. So, now, Vance's book also had its share of critics. Now, I must admit, I haven't read it. I have it, and I haven't read it yet, but I am going to read it. But the people who criticized his book weren't commenting on his white privilege. In the book, he draws a solid line. This is what I've read. This is what I've read about his book. To be fair, I gotta say, he draws a solid line from his home in the American Rust Belt in Appalachia. I used to say Appalachia, but I think now they call it Appalachia, or maybe they always did, and I was mispronouncing it, and Ohio, to the rise of Donald Trump and the GOP in that part of the country of the United States that had faithfully voted blue for generations. Now, that part of America has not only been shafted by corporate America, who exported their jobs overseas. It's also been hit hardest by the opioid crisis. I knew that Ohio was hit hard by the opioid crisis, but I never understood, all the things around it. Now I do. Um, According to Vance, this is why people like him put on MAGA hats for the first time 6 years ago. They said the Democratic Party is not meeting our needs. And here's Donald Trump who says, I'm going to save jobs, I'm going to bring back coal, I'm going to do this. And they said, okay, all right, let's do it. So, I get it. Now, in the movie, Vance's mother, Bev, is a drug addict. But Howard and Taylor make no attempt to understand the reasons why that happened. And this is, to me, this is the big thing. Instead, Vance's firebrand grandmother, Mama, played by Glenn Close, she explains it this way, that Bev, quote, just gave up. That's a cop-out. Now maybe the real Mama said that. I don't know, maybe she probably did. But it doesn't make it worth repeating without showing the other side of the argument as well. And I think that to me this was really disappointing. She didn't just give up, maybe Mama thinks she did, but to me there's more to it than, there was more that needed to be said about that, and I was disappointed that the movie didn't do that. Now, Vance has said in interviews that the takeaway from his book should be that community and family are all that matter. And perhaps this is the message that Holland and Taylor want audiences to take away from the film too. But unfortunately, what they give us is what some critics are calling poverty porn, where we can watch and say, there but for the grace of God go I. To me, this was really, really disappointing. Now, Close and Adams, who have 13 nominations between them with not even a gold statuette to show for all their efforts over the years, they both give it their all here. And to me, the acting was good. To me, I had the problem with the story. Close is barely recognizable in a frazzled wig, Coke bottle glasses, that hide her face, and a fat suit. I don't think she put on weight. I think that's a fat suit underneath her Walmart purchase wardrobe. Of the two performances, I'd say hers is the better one, as her character has more depth, but I'll make a safe prediction now that she won't win an Oscar for this role either. Now, Adam's characterization of Bev really just has one note. She's crazy, jacked up train wreck of a mom. That's it. So she definitely won't. I don't even think she'll get a nomination. But anyhow, interestingly, Bo Hopkins, who is in the movie as well, he plays Papa, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's got a small role as Mama's husband. Now, Bo Hopkins, people might remember he was in American Graffiti, which also Ron Howard was in. But their relationship goes even further back to the Andy Griffith Show. In 1967, he had a small he was on one episode in 1967. And so maybe they met before that, but certainly they would have met at that time, 1967. Long time ago. Oh, I was so young. Now, Hillbilly Elegy is streaming on Netflix. Audiences are liking this film more than critics are. Now, I certainly didn't hate it. I thought the acting was good. It's a bit over the top. It was good, but the story is highly problematic. And I am going to read the book. So I would say, take it or leave it. Watch it, don't watch it, whatever. Hillbilly Elegy. The other film I'm going to talk about, I don't have a lot to talk about today, but the other film I'm going to talk about is called The Nest. Now, as I said, thanks to a bunch of dancing grannies, our cinemas are closed. So this is why I have to watch other things, unfortunately. And so when I'm looking for other films to watch, I think, well, what should hit my radar? And there's a film called The Nest, which many critics are calling one of the best films of the year. And the story it takes place in the Reagan-Thatcher era, which you don't know is the 1980s. And we have Rory O'Hara, played by Jude Law. Everybody knows Jude Law. He seems to have it all. He's got a beautiful wife, lovely children. He's a commodities trader. He lives in a very leafy part of Connecticut, which actually it was filmed in Canada. And people who are Canadian like me, I saw the very first scene. I go, oh, I even know where that is. They don't even have to say, but I could tell where in Canada that was filmed. So they seem to have this picture perfect life, but their domestic bliss is upended when Rory decides to take a job in London, working for his former boss, Arthur Davis, played by Michael Culkin, who was in TV's The Crown and The Good Lawyer, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Turner. He's a staple of British films. Now, Alison doesn't really want to go to London, as she says, and this is in the trailer. It's their fourth move in 10 years. So they want to settle down. She's got a nice life training young equestrians on a nearby farm. But Rory tells her, he says, look, you know what? This is all going to work. You know, I can make this work. And he goes and he decides to rent this rambling neo-Gothic estate in Surrey, and he arranges to ship Alison's beloved horse to their new home. Like, he really tries to make it right. But before long, cracks begin to appear in this perfect marriage as Alison realizes that Rory is spending money faster than he's making it. And the kids also, they just can't seem to find their footing at school or at home. Now, strangely, this film is being billed as a drama romance. I don't see that at all. I mean, I don't know where the romance is, but it's more like a horror film, a drama horror film, except that there's no horror. I honestly thought there was going to be horror because it's, you know, you've got the old house, you've got dimly lit corridors, you've got a secret passageway, and most importantly, you have Rory's unraveling. And, you know, it's very reminiscent of The Shining, the way the central character unravels before our eyes. It has all the makings of a horror film, but it never goes there. Strangely enough, I don't know. You know, I mean, nothing happens for the first 70 minutes, and the film's only 107 minutes long. I was watching this going, when is something going to happen? You know, so things happen, you know, because the story does propel forward, and, you know, you can see that he's, you know, he's not that he's a con, but he's not who he pretends to be. Well, I guess that makes him a con. But he's, you know, you know, he's built this facade around himself, and that starts to crack open, and she sees it. And the kids see it too. But it doesn't go beyond that. And I was really, really frustrated watching this film. I wanted something big to happen, and it just doesn't happen. Now, this is writer-director Sean Durkin's second film. His first film, Marcy May Marlene, came out 9 years ago. It won the Dramatic Directing Award at the 2011 Sundance Film Festival. So, as I said, second film in 9 years. And you know what? Critics are loving this film. Many critics are saying this is one of the best films of the year. It closed the Deauville Film Festival in France earlier this year. It won the jury prize and the best film prize. It won a third one as well. I can't remember which one it was. You know what? I just didn't get it. You know, the acting is really good. I gotta say this. The acting, especially her, what's her name, Carrie Coon. People would know her from TV's Fargo. Probably this. I think she's on the third season. I don't watch it, but I think she's on the third season of TV's Fargo. She was really good, and of course Jude Law is always good. I just didn't get this film at all. The Nest. Sorry, you know. So it is supposed to come to our cinemas in Hong Kong, but who knows when. We'll see what happens. So it's not playing everywhere. Right now it's only available in cinemas in countries, in countries where cinemas are open. So I don't know that you'll be able to find it yet on a streaming service. I've been looking on the streaming services. I don't think it's available yet. If it is, I don't know. Check it out. To me, the acting was really good. The story, very, very frustrating because it just doesn't go anywhere other than he's created a facade around himself. So that's The Nest. That's it. That's all I'm going to talk about today. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week, but we'll see. So enjoy. Have a good week. Please be safe. Wear your mask. Wash your hands lots of times. Social distance, all that sort of stuff. We're not out of the woods yet. We're getting there. But you got to hang in there. Be tough. See you. Bye.